Hello everybody. And so you might be watching this video thinking, I want to get shrimp for the first time. What do I need to successfully keep shrimp? Well, in this video, I'm going to try to help you along your journey figure out shrimp. Now, anything I talk about in this video, this is pertaining to Neocaridina shrimp. Keep that in mind. Those are your typical cherry shrimp, blue dreams, stuff like that. Just cherry shrimp and all the different colors that they come with. I'm going to talk about the tank. What all do I need to have to successfully keep tank? Or what all do I need to successfully have in my tank to keep shrimp? Then we got, what are we going to keep with our shrimp? Is it just going to be shrimp only, or are we going to add shrimp to an existing aquarium? Maybe we have a community tank and we think, boy, shrimp sure would be fun to try. I think I'm going to try some shrimp. So then we got, what can I keep with shrimp successfully? Food. What do I got to feed shrimp? Luckily that one's pretty easy. And where do I even get shrimp? There's all kinds of people trying to sell shrimp. I want to help you distinguish what to look for, distinguish the good from the bad. And so here we go. Let's figure out what we need to keep shrimp. Stay tuned. The first thing you got to keep in mind when you're wanting to get some shrimp is the tank. Where am I going to put these shrimp? What kind of housing am I going to provide for these shrimp? So the number one, most important, and it's not even close, is to have a fully cycled tank. Neocaridina shrimp are pretty tough, but one thing they cannot tolerate is ammonia. Ammonia of any kind will kill them quick. So they're not just one of them ones where you set up a new tank and throw them in, and usually, like you can with some tough fish, they'll tough it out and sometimes be all right. Shrimp, you can't do that. Shrimp, you got to have a fully cycled and fully established. What I mean by established is this tank has had something going on in it for a while. A lot of times you have some fish or whatever going on in there. As long as you got algae and some mulm and biofilm growing, the shrimp are grazers, and that's what they'll be grazing on all day. And they appreciate foods too. We'll talk about that later. But a lot of times they're just going to eat the biofilm and stuff growing on the plants and the substrate and the wood and the rocks and whatever surfaces you have in your tank. So the next thing to keep in mind when we're thinking about the tank is the tank size. Now, one of the best parts of shrimp is you can have a 1 gallon bowl to as big of a tank as you want. So that's the good thing about shrimp. You can keep them in little tiny bodies of water. But I will say, from my experience, my bigger tanks mostly all the time, the big tanks do better. And my theory on that is that shrimp love stability. They love nothing more than having the same stuff every day. And when you have a bigger body of water, it is much easier to keep that going on. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is like filters and heaters. Heaters, don't even need it unless your house gets in the 40s, and even then they'd probably still be all right. As long as you keep your house at a halfway decent temperature, they'll be fine. I've had them anywhere from 60 to 80. They don't like, when you start getting in the upper 70s, they don't really like it too much. So there's that. Now filters, you can have any kind of filter you want. Just keep in mind, if you have a power filter, you're going to have to put some kind of thing on the intake of that filter, or your little baby shrimp are going to get sucked up, and that's no bueno. So then the next thing we're going to talk about is substrate. Now, you don't need any kind of special substrate. In fact, you don't want a special kind of soil active substrate. You don't want any, I don't think you really want any kind of plant substrate. because that can cause some problems, especially at first. So always go with inert substrate. My go-to is black diamond blasting sand, and I get that at the Tractor Supply store for like 10-12 bucks a bag, 50-pound bag, and it goes a long way. I have it in most of my tanks. So then we're going to talk about the next thing is plants. You gotta have plants. I mean, I guess you technically don't have to, but in a shrimp tank, they like pristine water conditions. And the best way to get pristine water conditions is to have lots and lots of plants. And then that not only that provides environments for them, it gives more surface area for them to graze on, especially plants like moss. You'll see the shrimp are always gravitated towards moss. Now in these videos, there's not that many in the moss because I've baited them out with algae wafers to get them all out for the video. But there's that. And I mean, easy low light plants. The easiest plants there are to grow in the lowest light possible. You don't want, for a shrimp tank, where you want hands off, you don't want to be in there pulling algae, having to dose whatever to keep the algae in check. You want the lowest light possible to grow plants. And with the least amount of time, just enough light to keep your plants happy and growing. Because you start getting too high a light, you're going to be battling algae, you're going to have to be dosing fertilizers to fight the algae, and believe me, you're better off just getting a cheap Aquaneat or a Beamswork light that'll fit on your tank, and that'll be more than enough light you need to grow any plants to benefit your shrimp. Water changes. I usually do 10 to 20% once a week. That depends on how much you feed. I got other stuff going on in my tanks besides shrimp, so I do more water changes. And start slow. Like shrimp are pretty adaptable. Neocaridina can adapt to most water conditions, but some people's water just are not suitable for shrimp. Sometimes there'll be something toxic in your water that you don't know about, that you have to find with testing and stuff like that, like heavy metals and stuff like that. Most people, Neos adapt perfect to their water, but there are some people out there, so don't get a whole bunch of shrimp at first. Make sure your shrimp are going to do good in your water. The next thing we're going to talk about is what can I keep with my shrimp? So this might be another very important topic to cover, because this is where I've had some of my biggest problems with my customers on my website selling shrimp. Brand new people who don't know what to expect. They've never bought shrimp before. And let me tell you this, shrimp are little. I think they're much smaller than a lot of people get. I had one guy complaining about getting shrimp that were small and they were babies, and I know for a fact he got breeding size juveniles, or not juveniles, breeding size younger adults, but they were breeding size. They were at least a ½ inch. And he was irate because his shrimp were babies. And he sent me, I explained to him now, most people do send small shrimp, but the shrimp you got were not small shrimp. Then he disagrees and argues with me and sends me like a Wikipedia link saying an adult Neocaridina shrimp is 1.6 inches. Well, let me tell you something. I don't have very many shrimp that even are half that, let alone. So this guy, he never got shrimp before. And he tried to do some research, and he thought he was going to get 1.6 inch monsters. As clearly you can see Most of these guys range, the biggest adults range from a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. They don't get much bigger than that. So that's just something you need to be aware of. So if you're getting shrimp to add into a already established community tank, chances are that's probably not the best idea, because earlier in the video, all those little blue specks that were little baby blue shrimp, it ain't gonna take a fish very big to eat those, because remember, if it fits in its mouth, it can eat it, and at some point it probably will. Now I've certain levels of success have kept guppies with shrimp, but with limited varying degrees of success. And guppies and endlers definitely do eat baby shrimp. That's for sure. I've seen that firsthand. The big fat mama guppies and endlers, they go down and hunt all the little baby shrimp for snacks. So keep that in mind. You don't want to be buying shrimp and just be buying expensive fish food. So, and shrimp or fish that are safe, I can tell you with 100% fact, in my experience with thousands and thousands of shrimp and hundreds of bristlenose plecos, that bristlenose plecos are shrimp safe. So I can feel pretty confident in saying that. Now, other things that I've heard lots of people say, autocinkless are safe. Some people say koi are safe. I kind of I think koi would probably eat some baby shrimp, but autos are good. Autos would be safe, I do believe, even though I've never had them with shrimp. So the smaller the shrimp, or the smaller the fish, the smaller the mouth, the better chance you have of it not eating your shrimp. If it fits in its mouth, they will eat it. And of course, as you may have noticed, I have tons and tons of snails. Snails are good. People who complain about snails don't know what they're talking about, in my opinion. Now, they can get to be a problem, but you gotta take them out. So shrimp are small. Bristlenose plecos, they're shrimp safe. I know for a fact from personal experience. And if shrimp can fit in a fish's mouth, it can be ate, and it probably will at some point. So when it comes to feeding your shrimp, this is another super easy part about keeping shrimp. Shrimp are scavengers, which means they'll eat anything. When one of their buddies dies, they will gladly eat their dead buddy. So, and any other thing that ends up in there. I once saw an endler. It wasn't looking too good. It was down to the end of its life, and the shrimp are already starting to gather around. I come back a couple hours later, and he's picked clean to a skeleton. So shrimp will eat anything. They're scavengers. I feed a good crushed flake. I have several videos I talk about what I feed my fish, or feed my shrimp and my fish for that matter. And so there are a lot of, they call super premium, super expensive shrimp food. And I've never gotten into that. In fact, I've heard lots of problems with people who don't know what they're doing, feeding way too much, because it's super concentrated form of food. And you can screw up your tank. You can crash your tank by feeding too much of it. So I suggest just getting a decent flake and crushing it up into powder. Or you don't even have to do that, but it does better. The young shrimp appreciate it crushed up. So don't think too much about it. Any basic fish food you have is halfway decent. Crush it up into powder and your shrimp will love it. So that's it about food. This is a real easy part. Neocaridina will eat anything. So we don't have to worry too much about that. Any food you got will work. Another important aspect to consider when you're getting shrimp is, where am I going to buy my shrimp at? And I'm telling you right now, from experience, the best place to get shrimp are from hobbyist breeders like myself, Or other people, there's lots of people out there, they breed from home and you want homebred. Because if you get someone who they import them by the thousands, they pull them out of ponds, they sort them, then they ship them halfway across the world, then they're thrown in holding tanks, and then they're bagged up again and shipped to your house. And I mean, that's pretty hard on them. It's a lot of stress. They're not the best quality. They can carry lots of diseases. Your safest bet is to find someone that's homebred them. So, people in the U.S., you're more than welcome to check out my website, markshellyaquatics.com. All my shrimp are homebred right here in my very own house. So, there's that. There's no diseases. I haven't added any new shrimp in almost 3 years, believe it or not. I like to keep things limited and keep my stock as healthy as possible. So, if you're not in the U.S. or you just don't like me for whatever reason and you don't want to buy shrimp from me, look for a hobbyist, fish clubs, shrimp clubs, local clubs, a local club, a local person, someone like that. A hobbyist breeder is going to have the best shrimp over anyone that imports. Okay, so in closing, the most important part of keeping a shrimp tank, starting a new one, is making sure your tank is fully established. It's been around for a while. It's got some stuff growing in it. Shrimp love the yuckiness. They like the mulm, they like the algae, they like the biofilm growing on everything. Shrimp are small. So, make sure you're not throwing shrimp in a tank they're just going to get ate. And don't add shrimp to a shrimp tank where we're going to get ate. Betas eat shrimp. Remember, everything that it can fit in its mouth, it will eat it. So just keep that in mind. Don't make the mistake of buying very expensive fish food, which are shrimp. And always get your shrimp from a small hobbyist breeder if possible. I realize that's not always going to be possible because probably 99% of shrimp out there these days are imported. So it's going to be real tough to find good homebred shrimp, but you're better off. Believe me, I've seen all kinds of posts in all the shrimp Facebook groups about all the shrimp diseases that neos have from imports, and by the time you get them, they're barely even alive. And maybe if you're lucky, you can nurse them to health. But just for a new person who wants to throw some shrimp in their tank, you gotta win the lottery to get those to live. So, if you're in the U.S. and you're looking for some shrimp, you're welcome to check out my website, markshellyaquatics.com. I've showed you guys several of my tanks in this video, and what you see is what you get. I don't have any hidden tanks anywhere. So consider checking out my website, Mark Shelley Aquatics, and hopefully you learned something about shrimp today. I get lots of people on my website ordering shrimp and they have no idea what they're getting themselves into, and it bothers me that I probably send my lots of shrimp off to certain death, and I want to try to remedy that. So hopefully enough people will see this and it'll help someone out there, and hopefully it helped you. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate your time. Bye.